Welcome to the Theory of Conspiracy. My name is Michael, and I'm joined, as always, with Rolando. And today we are going to be talking about the Mandela effect. How you doing today, Rolando?
Doing pretty good, Mike. No complaints here.
What timeline are you in today, since we're talking about the Mandela effect? The one that you're most prosperous, I hope? Most prosperous, I hope?
I think there has to always be an alpha timeline, right? Like all the right decisions. So I'm not sure I'm in my worst one, but yeah.
Maybe not the best one either.
Maybe not the best one. Yeah, not the alpha one.
But this is an okay one, all right.
Yeah, so this is like everything everywhere all at once. I'm not quite the action movie star who. Well, even that one wasn't that good either for her.
Yeah, no, she ended up being in the best one. That basically is kind of the theory, right, of the Mandela effect. I love that you brought that up because that just actually won the Academy Award.
Won like everything, yeah.
Yeah, won everything, man. In Short Round was taking pictures with
good.
Andy.
We talked about it. I love that movie, and it's a weird movie, but I'm kind of glad that I mean, who cares? It was a good movie, so I'm glad someone got rewarded that deserved it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought so too. So, I mean, kind of like the multiple timeline idea of Mandela effect or multiverse, or it's kind of the idea that we remember a certain thing a certain way, and then another person remembers it differently, and that is basically the Mandela effect. And they, you swear up and down that it's the way that you remember it, and the other person swears up and down it's the way that they remember it, and the conclusion is that there's different timelines or different universes that we were a part of, and now we're in a different simultaneous universe together, and that's why there's this contradiction of what something actually was when we were growing up and now what is in this timeline. So the first one that we're going to talk about, a couple Mandela effects today, but the first one that gets it going is Nelson Mandela, the death of Nelson Mandela. Why don't you talk a little bit about that one? And because you're actually the one that actually introduced me to the Mandela effect. So
did I?
Yeah, you did. You and Ed, you and our friend Ed,
okay.
Introduced me to the Mandela effect, and I was just like, "What the hell are these guys talking about?"
All right. Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, Mandela effect. Maybe I introduced it. It's not like one that I'm crazy about. I'm like, oh, this is the truth here, but it's a fascinating idea. Yeah, if Mandela was the first one, I remember him being in jail and becoming president. Our friend that you mentioned, Ed, he was one of those who's like, I swear I remember him dying in prison. So then it's like, oh, there's a contradiction there. But yeah, so it's something like that where people have this memory of a different event, a different remnant of an alternate timeline or what have you. But yeah, Mandela, I mean, that's what kind of is, he's the figurehead for this weird theory. So Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, so I would say the theory was named like after he died in 2013. You know what I mean? And people distinctly remember him dying in the 80s. So I'm in the camp where he was president as well, but there are people that swear up and down that he wasn't, and it boggles the mind, sometimes with some of these Mandela effects,
Yeah,
but we might have some contradictory, ones here, between the two of us. I guarantee it. So
for that one, I just feel like if he would have died in prison, we probably wouldn't have heard of him.
Who would have remembered some prisoner in Africa? You know what I mean? Like from the United States, we're very United States centric,
Yeah, kind of cut off from what's happening in the world. But yeah, I just think that he would have just been another political prisoner who dies in another country. That probably happens all the time. So. But yeah, but it's interesting. Well, because of that, now we have this whole nugget of Mandela effects.
All right, so we're just gonna go down the list here. The first one that we're gonna talk about, other than Mandela, is peanut butter. We're gonna talk about Jif or Jiffy. What is that peanut butter called? You know what brand I'm talking about, right? The red, blue, and green with the red top, and
yeah.
Is it Jif or is it Jiffy?
I feel like maybe it's the Mandela effect. I feel like it's correctly going to be Jif, but I want to say it's Jiffy. I just want to say I want some Jiffy peanut butter, but I feel like it is Jif.
So people swear there was Jiffy peanut butter back in the day, but we speculate they're combining Jif with the competitor Skippy. So I think I've always kind of called it Jiffy.
Yeah, it makes it cute, makes it fun. Like it's like, hey, I want some Jeff peanut butter. Hey Jeff, my name is Jeff. Versus like you know, Jiffy. Like you want some Jiffy and jelly? Yeah. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's something there's something fun with putting Y's in your breakfast food. So
Yeah,
I thought
I
it was
always,
something like that. I thought it'd be a Jif, but it's like I want my heart says Jiffy, but my brain says Jif.
this is a very the controversial one. How is Looney Tunes spelled? Is it Looney, Toons, or is it Looney, Tunes?
Okay, so I think so being a fan of the Looney Tune sort of like Bugs Bunny, Sylvester, those guys, I believe it was tunes of the TOO sort, but then there was Tiny Toon Adventures in the 90s, which was like Daffy Duck and or no, Babs Bunny and Buster Bunny, and it was a cute show, but I believe that was the tunes of TUNES. I believe there was two versions, two different spellings, but I'm going with TOO for the original.
They, in this timeline, say it's Tunes, Tunes. But I remember it as Toons because like cartoons.
Yeah, they're not necessarily singing every episode.
Right, but they did have those musical pieces as well. So I don't know. I could have sworn up and down, it was Toons, but also I was 3 years old and I was kind of an idiot. So and you just kind of associate, oh, this cartoon is spelled this way, cartoon. You know what I mean? Like that's how you spell cartoons, right? Unless I'm totally off base here. How do you spell cartoons?
CARTOONS.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
There was just one thing I want to add on with the tunes. There was these I'm a music producer. There was these producers in the early days of reggaeton called Looney Tunes. They would make their little reggaeton beats boom and they're like Looney Tunes, they would Looney Tunes. So that means they just made loony spelled differently and it was tunes the whole time. Like I was thinking like, man, these guys are kind of creative. They take the tunes of TONS, turn into tunes TUNES to say, hey, we're a
Yeah, I
producer.
mean they were just
But
copyright infringing. Yeah.
yeah, at that point, so they I imagine they spelled loony with like a U maybe just to be different.
Maybe
But
yeah, maybe
so
they just
they took
yeah.
the tunes to just wow.
This is the one that people get crazy about.
I don't know. It's the
Uh,
Bears.
it's the Bears. You knew it. You called it out. You knew which one it was. The Berenstein spelt the Berenstein Bears spelt Berenstein, or the Berenstain Bears, or Berenstain with an A.
Yeah, STAIN. Like
Yeah,
got some dirty spots on your
you got
Bears.
some, and they all have spots on their clothes. So I mean, that could make sense. I don't know. I don't know.
Do they?
I was in what? Oh, I will be honest. You tell me which one you thought.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's the one where I read the books. I was like a fan of the Barons,
me too.
and
Yeah,
to me, they're Berenstein. Like I figured they're either Jewish or like related to the Frankenstein family
yeah.
offshoot or something. So when I saw the Mandela effect, like Berenstain, I'm like, was same thing. Was I just an idiot kid who's barely learning how to process words and information, which could have totally been the case, but I didn't. But I was pretty well read as a kid, and I didn't think of it as Berenstain Bears. So what are the ramifications of that? Like, what alternate timeline did some intergalactic force take over and say, we pronounce our names with more of the letter A than E, and if you're Jewish centric, then no, you must convert your ways as well.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's what it is. If in the
That's
alternate
I mean
timeline, that's
that's
exactly what it is.
that's definitely what happened. Yeah,
Yeah,
Thanos maybe something ish.
yeah. Space
Uh,
Nazis,
Space
basically.
Nazi. I like where we're going with this.
Yeah, space Nazis kind of
not not
time
necessarily.
travel back.
Not in the way you think I like it, but in the that makes
So
sense
we're
for the
gonna go
alternate
weird with
timeline.
this real quick. Let's just start riffing here.
But that's something with the Mandela effect that's weird to me. It's like, okay, like let's say like you would think there's big events, right? Like, hey, I misremember World War II. It wasn't or World War One. It wasn't Franz Ferdinand who got assassinated. It was this Mitch Carl guy. Like, what? Like some
Yeah,
made up where you're like, okay, well, that's a world event. That makes sense. Versus a someone altered the timeline to change a children's book spelling slightly. Like I don't know.
It's great. Yeah, it's just crazy to me because I mean, like I do, regardless of whether you believe in this or not, there are people like myself and yourself that remember something different. You know what I mean? And that's kind of a weird dynamic, if you will. And it could, you know, a lot of people say, you know, time travel is another theory why the Mandela effect happens. Alternate timelines, you know, we splinter off into different wormholes or parallel dimensions if we make a certain choice. And there's infinite timelines, right? Like, and it's now becoming more and more, these theories are becoming more and more mainstream with, you know, the Marvel movies and everything everywhere all at once, you know, winning the Academy Award, you know, this past week or so. And all of this stuff is coming to the forefront of media. I don't want to say it's like fact or anything, but there are scientists that do believe that there are alternate timelines.
There are scientists. Yeah, I was gonna say I just read something recently where a scientist thinks that like with death, that almost like a scientific way of saying there's an afterlife, that you may actually be going into remnants of your other multiverse self. So almost like the one with Jet Li, it sounded like from this scientific theory, where it's like, okay.
Oh, I like
so,
that reference, man.
so
That's a great movie.
yeah, I mean, he wasn't saying like you're gonna get stronger in these other timelines, but kind of, and it was kind of like, well, what happens to the person who's in that thing, in that timeline that you're now taking over, but then you're the same person the whole time? I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, all right, science,
Right.
but yes, it's getting more accepted, even when it sounds kind of fringy and weird, but backed with data.
Backed with data. So I mean, if there's an alpha, I guess that might go back to the alpha timeline, right? Where you're the you are, yeah, like there's choices you couldn't make, right? But like let's say you choose choice B out of A and B, right? And now you're in your main timeline where it's B. And I did B on purpose just to be contradictory to the alpha. But you know, you go into and now that alpha timeline or that A timeline is just kind of like a shadow timeline to that person if you would have made that other choice. But which one is the more powerful one? Or are they all simultaneously powerful? And these are the questions that are like being asked right now, which is kind of weird that it almost turned into like a scientific study from this conspiracy theory almost. You know what I mean? And maybe they were studying this all the time, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what are your thoughts on timelines and alternate timelines and multiverses and all that stuff? And
yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I look at, you know, some of the big movies, you know, like, you know, there's Groundhog Day, but like Scrooge, right? Like Scrooge, it's a Christmas story, but it's also an alternate timeline story where he sees like these future paths. And maybe like sometimes we think of the alpha timeline, yeah, that's the keyword now, as being the one where you're the richest. But Scrooge was rich and he was kind of miserable and lonely, and then he became less rich, I guess, when he started throwing out the window. But you know, open up your heart, that kind of
buying
stuff.
Christmas gooses for everyone, all that stuff.
Yeah, inviting Tiny Tim for dinner and all that. And
Oh, that shit's
but
expensive, dude.
yeah, you're not gonna be rich anymore. You're not gonna be in the JP Morgan party anymore, Scrooge. You went down a tax bracket, giving it all away. So but yeah, it's definitely been an idea. It's becoming more, it's like every other movie is a multiverse movie now, but there's always been this sort of like alternate timeline, or you know, if I would have made these decisions better, or you sometimes you get your wish, you go through it and realize like, oh, I need to appreciate what I have more. So it's always interesting, right? But
Sure.
I don't know. These bleed throughs are an interesting idea, that there's that we're in this shifting timeline. And even like scientifically, right? There's some ideas, you know, from Einstein that, you know, time travel and things like that could be real, but then they're just kind of ideas that are maybe as good as like freaking Bruce Banner telling you why time travel works in the Avengers versus Doc Brown. Like they're theories, you know, like, oh, you can't alternate the timeline, you just divert it, versus, you know, like it's interesting ideas, like what does happen if there's a huge seismic shift in the timeline and it wasn't supposed to be. Is there like some sort of, is that reality ended? Is some sort of time tornado, or do we just get little remnants of what may have changed? And you know, just it's interesting, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it could splinter. You know, yeah, they're like, and like you said, like that was the funniest part in that Avengers movie was when he's like, "Well, you've seen Back to the Future. Bullshit. That's not how it happens." And just within like 5 minutes, they explain this whole interdimensional time, you know, and then they go off into Loki with the time police and all that whole multiverse shit. You know, it's just it's interesting that it's coming to the forefront and these theories are becoming more and more mainstream. All right, well, let's get back on track here. We have a lot of these to go. 5, Curious George. Does he have a tail or no?
I mean, he's a monkey.
Sure, but he's also a cartoon character. So
Yeah.
did they draw a tail on him or not?
I feel like the answer will be no. He's just a tailless monkey, but I don't know. I've read that guy. There's a guy with his owner has a hat and the yellow shirt, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. I feel like he must have used that damn tail to get into some hijinks. Like, hey, I use my tail, steal a banana from this, you know, this restaurant or whatever. But I don't know. Let's say I know it's a surprise. He has no tail.
So I always remembered him without one. There was never tail. Get over it. That's what they say. So
yeah. So it was like tucked away in his, just tucked down.
Yeah, he was like the Buffalo Bill of children's book. He was tucking it back, you know. Put the banana in the basket or it gets the hose again. So we'll move on. That one's so fucking stupid. I don't even care. Okay, here. This is a big one that you'll hear your lady friends arguing over: Sex in the City or Sex and the City.
Ooh. Never watched this show, so I think it's Sex in the City because they're having sex inside of it versus let's have sex now, let's go shopping in the city. I think it's Sex in the City.
I agree with that, but they actually say it's Sex and the City, and there's a lot of people that say they call bullshit on this. But I specifically remember it when I was younger, and you could always kind of like sneak a boob, you know what I mean? Like you maybe see a flash of a titty on HBO.
Yeah, HBO would, yeah.
So I was just like, you know, that was my main objective while watching this show. And I always remember it being Sex in the City because that was like the name of the article. But I don't give a shit enough to like really get into this, so it could have very well been Sex.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight it. I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I'd watch Red Shoe Diaries if I really wanted an HBO titty, or even Tales from the Crypt.
Tales from the Crypt had some in there too. You knew it. You know this. So Oscar Mayer or Oscar Mayer? Meyer or Mayer?
It's always Oscar Mayer. That's how we pronounce it. I'm sure you're gonna tell me it's been pronounced Mayer or spelled Mayer this whole time, but yeah, to me it's Meyer. Meyer.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. And again, this is one where we both remember it with an E, but they're saying it was an A. Oh yeah, we thought it was E as well, but it was always A. All right, here's one that we can all agree upon. Is it Fruit Loops, Fruit loops, or Froot loops?
Fruit, like mispronouncing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like General Mills has a.
Well, it's Kellogg's. So there's another Mandela effect right there.
All right, haven't they all been acquired? I'm sure they're all one corporation.
They're all owned by Nestle. You know,
like the News Corporation, and
right.
They're all I feel like they have a responsibility as cereals and promoting to kids that they need to spell their stuff right. Let's not have so it's fruit, you said Fruit or Froot?
Yeah.
Fruit.
Yep.
Fruit Loops. I remember there was like an Aldi brand. I think now Aldi just kind of sells mainstream stuff, but I remember back in the day it was like we and we buy like crappy cereal that doesn't taste as good and it's spelled slightly differently. So I feel like there was a Aldi version called like Fruit Rounds instead of Fruit Loops, and they may have been the Froot, but Fruit Loops, man. Oh, he's a crazy bird. Let's go with Froot. Yeah, that crazy bird, Toucan Sam, he spelled it differently.
I think, I remember it Froot as well, and that's what it is. That's what they say it is, at least. And the reason I think behind that is because they couldn't technically call it fruit because it's just like sugar rounds.
Yeah.
You know, so they had to do that. But people swear up and down that it was fruit, like how you spell fruit, loops, and It wasn't. Monopoly Man. Here's another one that everyone gets all fucking crazy about. Did he have a monocle or did he not have a monocle?
Yeah, I know he doesn't now, but this is one where I was like, I swear he had one. He was like, you have that sort of 1920s like rich guy monocle, and maybe not the cigarette on the little dangly tip thing, but I thought he had a monocle. But
So yeah, so he doesn't now. People swear up and down that he did. The Parker brothers, people say that he never had a monocle. I never remembered him with a monocle. Personally, I think that's where our timelines kind of diverge, my friend. Fruit of the Loom.
yep, the guys in giant fruit costumes,
Yeah.
peddling underwear.
Yeah. So did it have a cornucopia and then the fruit was spilling out of the cornucopia, or did it just have the fruit?
I don't think it had. I know of that cornucopia logo for like random like Mexican grocery stores, but I don't think the Fruit of the Loom guys. I think they were just like a rough collection of fruits hanging out with their underwear. I don't think there was a cornucopia there.
I remember it having a cornucopia. How do you explain it? It's like almost like a
Like
a round cylinder cone.
it's like a horn with vegetables and fruits stuffed inside. I don't even know. I've never seen one actually in like real life to even know like what are we
What
referencing.
is
I was just following your lead there.
but I just don't. I just I just know. I remember it having it. I remember the logo having it, but that's another one where it's just
So they said they don't know that the records don't exist.
they just say
They're fire.
what they just basically have a commentary on here saying it used to have a cornucopia behind the fruit, right? Right?
Well, I was just thinking about that. Like if the fruits are to represent your your balls,
Right.
and the cornucopia is basically like I'm
Here.
looking at some pictures. It's like a basket where fruit's spilling out of it. So that would be like I feel the opposite. It's like, well, no, we got to keep them secure in the basket. We can't let your fruits just go free and like
So what
cornucopia's out.
you're just saying horrible marketing regardless.
Yeah, bad marketing. Yeah, unless your briefs have like holes in it, and you're just your
So
one ball's going that way, the other ball's going that way, and your stems are going up top. It's just like it's I don't want to I don't want that to be a cornucopia. I want it to be loose, and I want briefs first off, or boxers first off. And
So that kind of reminds me of like, okay, my theory, right? Well, let's take a little break here. When these like conspiracy theories of the Mandela effect come out, I don't really buy too much into them. I think a lot of people just collectively get kind of confused, or they kind of just fill in the blanks on stuff, and then they just assume that's the way that everyone else perceives it. Because I'm a stoic by philosophy, like your perception is your reality and stuff like that. So your mind kind of plays tricks on you sometimes. So no, that never happened. That was never a thing. It doesn't show on the internet. And it's like, no, I have a box right here. Look, it's this. And
oh, it's fake. It's a deep fake.
It's a deep fake. Right. Exactly. So I don't know how much merit I put into these, but also like this one, for instance, this is just totally stupid. C3PO has a silver leg.
I guess
Every
it was like
part
the
of him was
sun.
gold except for his shin down on his right leg.
Yeah, I remember something like either there was a toy with that. I was just looking at that the other day and like what was that all about? And I guess they were just saying it existed, but it was just because the sun hit it weirdly or something. But it wasn't really like he had a different colored leg. It just looked like that for that one particular moment or something. But you're the Star Wars fan here, or the Star Wars not
Yeah.
fan, you're the Star Wars fanatic. I'm a fan, but you're just next level knowledge of it. So what happened there?
I don't. It's just I never every scene I've seen has always been gold legs. Like you know what I mean? So that one is just ridiculous to me. I don't even understand how that could even be a thing.
But wasn't there a toy? I've seen an image of it or something, but yeah, I don't remember it from the movie.
Well, I'm sure there was probably casts or missed dyes, or so some of these I'm just like all right, here's one that's fun. The Flintstones, so like FLIN and then stones, or the Flint Stones.
I know that one. I know it's Flintstones, but I never was like, I want some Flintstones ice cream. I was like, I want some damn Flintstones ice cream while I eat some damn Flintstones Fruity Pebbles watching some Flintstones cartoons. So I always thought it was Flin. Apparently it's Flint, like the freaking G.I. Joe or like a lighter thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I always remembered it Flintstones as well, but I mean, again, like I was also a kid when I was, you know what I'm saying? So, and I didn't keep my Flintstone push pops from the ice cream truck, so there's no way I can actually know. I just have to trust the internet.
Yeah, and sometimes you're learning, like when I watched Flintstones was an old cartoon when I was a little kid, and so there was my older family that had been watching it. So if they communicated as, "Hey, you want to watch the Flintstones?" I'm gonna be like, "Okay," and even if I see the T, I'll just assume, I guess the T is silent because we didn't pronounce our T's back in the prehistoric times. So I'm
Right.
guess that's where I got it from, maybe, but
Right. And it's also, you have, yeah, the different dialects from the different areas of the country. It's very interesting to me. I honestly think, if anything, this Mandela effect is a psyop. That this is my theory for real. It's a psyop to harbor resentments between the masses over stupid little things. Because this
one
never,
more thing to make us divisive over.
yes, yeah, and it's an internet operation, because this didn't exist until the internet, right? Like there was never like an argument of the Flintstones versus Flintstone, or the Berenstein versus Berenstain Bears. You know, it was just like, oh no, here, go to the library, here's the book, peace, deuces, you know what I mean? But you know, people latch on to certain things and it just kind of perpetuates. So I honestly think that this is just like kind of that's, you know, you're sowing disdain for, like, you know, for something as, no, the Monopoly man has a monocle. You're such a moron.
See, I haven't met those people yet. And I want to, you know, I welcome conspiracy ideas. I don't jump and believe in everyone, but they're like, hey, I read this on the internet. It's kind of stupid. Hey, check this out. And so I'll spread my wild ideas to you guys, not because I want to, you know, maybe a little corrupt your brains, but I just like, check this out. But yeah, there's only few conspiracies where I'm like, that's a hill I'm gonna die on because I really believe in that. Like
Right.
Mandela effect is not the hill at all. And I haven't met that guy who's like, no, this is the centerpiece of everything, man. 9/11, JFK, Roswell cuts into this. Like, I want to hear more. Just like flat Earth, you know, like we sometimes
Right,
talk
right.
about that, where it's like, but what's, I guess,
How did you
why?
get there? Yeah, like, well, how did you get there? Right.
Yeah, what's holding this together? What are we like? Yeah, you know. So I just wanted, yeah. What's the you die on this hill? Tell me more about this hill. What are we? What's Flintstones like? What are we holding back as far as that? Because when I see conspiracy, I see like people in power working together to, you know, keep the masses down. But what are we? I don't know. I don't.
What? Yeah. What is?
What's the end game or something with this?
Right.
Or the beginning game? What's any game with this? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess if my little rinky-dink theory is true with the psyop, is just to make disinformation mainstream. You know what I mean? So to make people say, well, no, I'm right, you're wrong. You know, so if it's on a real micro level, it can translate to a macro level. You know what I mean?
And that could, you know, and I was a guest on your other podcast, the Head Trauma podcast, and MK Ultra was referenced at one point, you know, CIA experiments, LSD, people off the street kind of stuff. And then we were talking about media and stuff, and I referenced Project Mockingbird, another operation, basically CIA and secret agencies infiltrating our news agencies and, you know, putting out their own stories. So this stuff happens. So yeah, I mean, social media infiltration, right? We've seen some of that with like Twitter stuff happening and back and forth and all that.
Sure.
But maybe they're like, can we infiltrate memes? Can we like?
Oh, 100% they are, dude.
Can we fuck with people's collective memory of stupid shit just to piss them off further? Because if they're fighting over their freaking cartoons and cereals, they're not gonna really work together to be like, hey, how come all our taxes goes to bullshit and we're broke all the time?
Right.
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
that's my theory, dude. Like I'm
Yeah,
telling you, like
I like it.
it's just like it's not at this. Hold on, let me rephrase. In this specific timeline, that I think is what's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they might be pulling some ideas from the other ones, but they're like, hey, we're gonna put it right in front here, and you guys are gonna fight about this shit. And you know, so I think what I'm saying is that I do believe in his alternate timeline shit, but I don't believe like, oh, okay, oh, we forgot to fucking scrub this part of it. Oh, it got bled over into this timeline. Oh, okay, well, let's just have everybody like I don't think that that's the case. I just think it's just
But if
nonsense.
perception is reality, then maybe in order
You
for these
know what?
bastards who control it, for it to be their alpha timeline, they have to be these conniving, conspiracy jerks who keep us fighting, so that they are like, hey, my alternate timelines, I'm poor, but where I control everything here, I'm an alpha. So
Right.
their alpha timeline is us being poor and fighting.
So I mean, we are we those jerks in this timeline since we're making this podcast and trying to. You can buy your T-shirts at our website. The Theory of Conspiracy. We'll have Looney Tunes spelled the correct way for you on. But no, so this is the hill. You mentioned hill. I'm ready to die on. This one, that being said, I'm going to participate in this nonsense. Ed McMahon and the Publishing Clearinghouse. Did he deliver checks door to door for the Publishing Clearinghouse?
I don't think I ever saw. I remember those commercials. I remember him being like a voiceover and narrator guy, but I don't think his old ass ever. Wasn't he like with Johnny Carson, or what the hell did he? What was his job? Was he Johnny Carson's side guy?
Yeah, he was like the Andy Richter to Cohen, right? So Conan. I don't want to cause another Mandela effect. His name was Cohen, guys, not Cohen.
Conan, right?
Conan
O'Brien, like
Conan the Barbarian O'Brien. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, no, he was Ed McMahon was Johnny Carson's like guest, not not co-host,
joke, like a sidekick.
Sidekick host. Yeah, funny man. Like,
I don't think his old white ass left that studio then, and I don't think he went door to door. I don't think he messed with the masses. So I'm gonna say I never saw him going door to door at these fake commercials presenting big O checks.
So this is what they say. We can see it clear as day. Ed McMahon handing families everywhere giant checks, but really, you're right. McMahon was never a spokesman for the company. Instead, he worked for the American Family Publishers, but he never handed anyone checks. His face was simply on the envelopes. That I guess it's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but I remember his face.
It differently.
I remember it differently. I remember him going to the houses and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm Ed McMahon, and here's your Publishing Clearinghouse check," and all that shit. But again, that was when I was young, so it very well could have been American Family Publishers, and his face was on there, and I just made that association, and somebody else was handing the checks out, because the Publishing Clearinghouse used to hand checks door to door. You won such and such money, and it was usually after the Super Bowl, and I just assumed it was always Ed McMahon, but maybe I'm just a dumb kid. You know what I mean? That's what I can chalk that up to it. I'm not,
That's what I'm kind of thinking. I'm thinking that even though we might see ourselves, adult selves, as like, I don't know, I kind of have a little drug addiction, or I'm kind of a drunkie now. I sometimes connect that with like kids. Like how many times were we in like we just woke up from a nap, we're still in a stupor, we're watching cartoons, and like we just had sugar rush from freaking drinking a whole thing of Kool-Aid with way too much sugar and some chocolate cake, and we're bouncing off the walls, and maybe we were playing too hard and we're slightly concussed. How many times have we been slightly concussed as kids?
Right.
And we didn't tell anybody because we didn't want to get in trouble. So I'll just eat this concussion. So yeah, I do kind of think we were half brain dead, half sugared out, half sleeping, dumb kids sometimes.
All of it, dude. I mean, we were the first generation raised solely on the television. You know what I mean? So that is like, oh, here's your Fruit Loops spelt with 2 O's,
made with no fruit.
Made with no fruit. You go sit down, have a fruit roll up that's made with no fruit. Have your corn syrup, drink your milk, watch
Read
your
your
fucking
read your children's books. So you can't even read correctly, you illiterate little child.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Bernstein, you
I'm not
idiot.
above any of that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying that my answer is correct. I'm just
I know. I just think
it's very
it's just funny.
interesting. It's just interesting to me the perception that we have, and like how everyone is just like, oh, of course I'm right, and of course you're wrong, and it's just it spills over, and that's why I think it's
where
really
it's like
is just like a psyop.
that's
Like
where it's funny. Where it's like, God forbid I'm wrong. I can't misremember a detail. No, the timeline has just completely changed. That's
right.
what it's like.
Of
Okay, then it's more logical than you're being a dumb child waking up from your nap and being in a stupor still.
right, right. Oh yeah, yeah. It's just no, it's just mind-boggling to me. That goes into it. Even I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. Everyone is just so you can't be wrong. You can't misremember something, and that's why I'm just like, this is some bullshit. Luke, I am your father. Is that
No,
did they say Luke in Empire Strikes Back?
he's no. I'm your father. He
I'm
doesn't
your
say that.
father. Yeah. I rewatched this just for this one specifically, and I always remembered it as Luke, I am your father. But I think what has happened is that in public, if you don't add Luke to it, right, you just sound like a fucking weirdo.
I am your father. Yeah,
I
it's
am
like,
your father. And they're
are
like,
we doing a
what?
Maury Povich skit?
Jeff, what are you even talking about? Like, what, like, why are you the Star Wars, bro? It's like, what do you know the scene with Luke? Luke, I am your father. And they have to correct it. So over time, it just became like you can infer with the word Luke, I am your father. You can be like, oh, my name's not Luke.
I think so. Yeah, I think like maybe sketches and skits where they're trying to reference that. Yeah, they put it as Luke, I am your father, and that's where you kind of remember it from.
But this
I
is the
once had
hill. This is the hill that people will die on. They're like,
yeah.
no, it was. It's like, oh, okay. They collected while you were sleeping. The Dark City people with their trench coats came in, took all your Empire Strike Backs cassette tapes, cut that Luke out, and just put them back on the shelves before you woke up in the morning.
Yeah, the DVDs, the Blu-rays, the VHS, and
all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was at a training once years ago where we were in a panel and the trainers trying to break the ice, and they gave that as a question, and I did the no, I am your father, because I don't know, I just thought Luke was too obvious. I forgot why I got it right. I was the only one who got it right, but I either remembered it because I watched it, or I just was like, I think Luke is too obvious. Let me just go with a little different. But yeah, there were some people who were like, no, it's Luke. No, it's like, let's move on with this training here. But they're on it and they're like, no, like I've watched it. This is a question I give to everybody, and you are on you got it wrong. And this is the one guy who got it right. No, but it says Luke. It's like he is Luke, but they didn't say his name. But yeah, so I think it's funny.
This is an interesting one that is similar to it that it caught me totally off guard when I was doing this. Hello, Clarice. What's that from?
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs, right? It was never said. In reality, he just says good morning. Yeah. It was never said. Do you so yeah, I mean, so there are some of these, like, now we just got off of saying how this is a psyop and how how God forbid you think you're wrong, but then there's shit like this that comes into play, and it makes me like, maybe there is another timeline, because that's some bullshit. I never.
So I do remember that. I mean, I feel like this is a funny juxtaposition of like where I'm like the one time of this whole season arc ever where I'm like more of the skeptic coming from like the rational versus like the other side of like fringy. I do remember Hello Clarice from something, but I do think that with all the sketch comedies that were going on in the 90s, like the Ben Stiller show and Living Color, Saturday Night Live, that it may have been parodied, and they would have said that, and that you kind of see
And it comes
Jim Carrey,
right.
like pretend to be him, and then you're like, hello, Clarice, and then you're just like, wait, that's not even the movie. Was it in the trailer? Was it cut out? I remember it. I'm not wrong. Must have been them changing the reality again. But I don't know. That's where I think it came from. But yes, I remember it. But I don't know if you say it wasn't in there, must have been from somewhere.
I don't know. Are we being sheeple right now for not believing in what we thought? But also, I just think it's more realistic that you, as a society, like there are parodies that happen, like you just said, you know that. But here's a big one, Lucy. You have some splaining to do, right? Where's that from?
Don't tell me he never said that. I love Lucy, Ricky Ricardo, and Lucia Ball.
Actually, never said.
Yeah.
What he really said was, "Splain that if you can," and Lucy, splain, Lucy, splain. It sounds like a little bit more, caricature racist. Lucy, you have some splaining to do. It's like, explain if you can.
It's like,
am I going to be canceled for that one? I don't know.
I mean,
Can you give me a pass being Mexican?
I was going to say, I'm Latino, and I feel like we all thought that too. You got some splaining to do.
Explain that if you can. My name's Jeff.
I mean, he was, Ricky Ricardo. I mean, he was a successful guy. He had like his own, he had like a huge band and his own show and
Babaloo. Yeah, there's some of these that I just don't. I get it. Like, okay, maybe it's in the zeitgeist, right? Like it's got parodied, or like you have to kind of, Lucy, you have some splaining to do. Like you see it, parodied, like you said, or just people growing up, like your aunts and uncles will, just say random shit, and you just take it as gospel when you're a kid, and you're like a sponge. And then you find out later that like they're dipshits, and just like you are now, So it's just like, I know I'm a dipshit, but this one is perhaps the most bizarre of all. Several people can attest to distinctly remember seeing a comedian in a movie Shazam, may argue that they're confusing the memory of the movie Kazam. That was the thing, right? Weren't there like two genie movies simultaneously? It was like one was Shaquille O'Neal and one was Sinbad. That 90s comedian was never a genie ever, but I've seen him in big old hammer pants.
Well, he dressed like a fucking pirate for the most part. He always had that big earring, and like his hair was like orange, and so I could see an image of someone and like, oh, Sinbad's playing a genie now or something. It's like, no, that's just Sinbad being Sinbad. He just
Sinbad just living his genie life in reality. Yeah, right. Okay.
I could see him like folding his arms over, like, and then
that's a rabbit hole I want to go down. Is Sinbad actually a genie?
But there was
this lamp.
All right, so let's go in this race rabbit hole. There was some 90s movies where like there was like these white movies where like I have a black friend who's kind of magic, right? Like Will Smith was like a magic freaking
no, I don't remember this one.
It wasn't a golf movie or something? Or
the Legend of Bagger Vance or whatever.
Yeah.
He was the magic caddy. He was the
magic caddy, or the Stephen King movie, with they're in jail, not the Shawshank Redemption, but the other
the Green Mile.
The Green Mile, yeah, right, where there's this like the black man is magic. So maybe people just thought they saw Sinbad's arm folded over, like, oh, he's magic, he's gonna grant some wishes. Like, no, he just folded his arms before he does a bad movie, but something to be about. So
that movie was actually a family drama. He was just wearing genie pants just because.
Yeah, his hearing, but he always looked like he was gonna go pirating somewhere. So I mean, it was just
his name was Sinbad, for Christ's sake.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, he had that. Shazam. So like, I know of Shazam as like the character, like the DC stuff, like Shazam. I mean, he turned into the red, superhero guy, and before Shazam, he was Captain Marvel. But there's a Captain Marvel in freaking Marvel. Whoa, Marvel is Marvel. Wow. Like, there's a whole thing of that crap too. This Shazam Marvel superhero ordeal. But I think it's funny. Yeah, I'm gonna go. He just looks like
I like, honestly,
he looks like he could be doing genie shit.
So I did see a movie where I thought he was a genie in it, but it very well could be your theory of he's just dresses like a pirate genie all the time. So it's okay. Disney World, which is in Florida, people
Uh-huh.
claim that when you entered the park, they distinctly remember seeing the Magic Kingdom castle, the one that's like the iconic,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
castle that's at the beginning of like the opening of the movies, right when you walked into the park. And now it is moved. So they say that in a different timeline, it was right at the entrance, and now it's not there. And I just, I don't give a shit. It's
So,
like,
so it reminds me. So I went to Disney, I think last year, last
where
January.
was the castle?
It was walking down Main Street, but yeah, I took my family and all that. And like the last, we'd gone to Universal quite a few times, so we're good on that. The last time I had gone to Disney, I was probably like 7 or 8. So I think adult me was like, I've been here before. I don't need a map. I can navigate. No, I didn't know shit as far as trying to go off my 8-year-old memory of visiting Disney. As far as, oh well, yeah, we just go here. We want to go to Space Mountain. We go to, like, no, that you got to look at the map if you. So I'll chalk it up to you were a kid and you probably were carried like some of the distance, and then you're like, I remember taking 2 paces, and then the castle was there. It's like, yeah, because you were a kid in a stroller. So
Yeah, and then your mom took you out of the stroller and be like, "We're here," because they didn't want to fucking deal with you getting through
yeah,
the lines. They're like, here's a fucking juice box. Shut the fuck up.
yeah,
Stay in the fucking wagon until we get to where we need to get. Oh, look, we're here finally. Oh, it was right at the entrance. Yeah, I think that's plausible. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of this shit that can be chalked up to like, because if you look at all this, right, it's all pop culture shit. It's all shit that you remember from back in the day. You know, oh no, it couldn't be Berenstain Bears. Like, I don't fucking know. I
yeah.
don't, you know, like how in it was past the age of 7. Was Berenstain or Berenstain Bears or Monopoly for that, you know, same thing. Was that a huge part of my life? No, it wasn't, you know. The only one I can be really specific on is the Sex and the City one because I was looking, you know, for boobs. And that's, I mean, so that's, I kind of remember that one. You know what I
That's
mean?
more of a pubescent era too.
Yeah,
You were
yeah,
like
you know.
older, you were a teenager versus like we
Or
were.
was I distracted by the titties? You know,
Well,
was I
maybe that
just,
was your name in your head for whacking it. Like, yes, sex in the city.
yeah.
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 Because I remember the New York opening. So you're like, all right, we're in the city now where there's fucking sex happening. So I don't know. So I can see.
She just stepped in a puddle. Oh yeah. So anyway, yeah, no, it's just I think you're right. And I think this has kind of just been memed out. And I think that those memes are controlled by the CIA.
Now you got me back in. Just
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I thought I was getting my sanity pulled out, you get me back in with the CIA. I'm like, all right, I could go now. I'll stay in this rabbit hole with you.
They call it Project Mandela. We're gonna find out 50 years from now that this has been a whole psyop and they've
Mhm.
just been fucking with us the whole time.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah, if they could get people to fight over Fruit Loops, and I think we get people to fight over the freaking election or
right.
vaccinations or the wars that are happening around the world. Like, so, like, yeah, I mean, it's a stone's throw away from let's keep these idiots fighting and all
Right,
that.
right.
And,
Well, it's just like let's bring it back to current events, right? Like, so there is no love lost from for me when it comes to Trump not being president anymore. I thought he was a fucking idiot, but like I also come from the school that they're all pieces of shit at that level. You know what I mean? Like, unless you're in like a local politician,
mhm.
you've been corrupted. Like, it's just there's absolute power, absolutely corrupts every step of the way. You really can't convince me otherwise. And this isn't a conspiracy in my mind. This is just like people are people. Like, you know, oh, hey, shit like this, and this is my theory, is like shit like this, where what you just said, like we'll have them fight over fucking Fruit Loops, and then we can have them fight over the president. Like stuff that's going down now with the banks collapsing and stuff like that, and all, you know, it's Trump, you know, did this in 2018.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you know, they couldn't have passed it without a bunch of fucking Democrats jumping on, and they wouldn't have passed the House. They didn't have a ultra majority in the House. So I call bullshit. You know what I mean? And like, yeah,
Right.
like, was he the guy that signed it into law? Absolutely, he's a piece of shit. But there's
Yeah.
also many other pieces of shit that got that to over the finish line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And I agree with you on that connection. And I feel like I'm a fan of Twitter now. I'm on Twitter. Just I don't post anything, but I like the fights back and forth. I like to see all that stuff. But just like the people who will die for the Mandela effect, like, no, it was not me misremembering something. It's like you see people who are very much like, I went this way or went that way, and no evidence will sway them. No, they're still going to blame, this happens today, but it was because of Trump before, or this is Biden, and, just very
So
much on the other side.
So this is the argument that I'm hearing. Oh, but a bunch of Democrats fucking voted for it too. So like, how dare you even blame the Republicans? And then you got the fucking Democrats, and they're just like, oh, it's Trump signed it into law, so it's not the fucking Democrats' fault. It's like, you're all pieces of shit. Like, it's all like, what aren't we seeing here? Have a healthy distrust for your government. They're all pieces of shit, guys. Like, I don't know what else to say. And the Mandela effect is a CIA psych op. So, there you go.
All right, I like it.
I'm a counterintelligence agent. Don't believe what I say. So whatever.
And I'm a reptilian, and which is really just an evolved dinosaur, and I'm really from Earth. I didn't have to leave. Yeah, you're the alien, you monkey.
Yeah. We got a reptilian and a CIA monkey fucking talking, shooting the shit here, guys. So you're in for some good stuff down the road. So with that, I think, do you have anything to add with the Mandela effect? What are your final thoughts on it? Do you think it's like legitimate? I know it's not a hill you're going to die on, just like me. Like, I don't really take any merit to it. I think it's just fun little brain exercise to fuck around with your friends and say, oh no, I remember it this way. Oh, you idiot, it's not that way. And I think we're playing into the CIA's shit with that, but it's also fun. So what are your final thoughts?
I think it's fun. I think it's definitely interesting. I think like in terms of like importance, it's pop culture, stupid nonsense memories, which is which kind of you can connect to perception is reality stuff, which is interesting. I think in terms of like looking at like artifacts that don't belong, like out of place artifacts, oop arts, things like that. We're like, hey, we're not supposed to be that. I think that's something that may be more interesting and has more ramification. But I think it's a funny, stupid. I think it's a cool safe space. I think like if you're getting into fist fights with your buddy, over a night of drinking because you're talking about Mandela effect, and you're doing Mandela effect wrong. But I think if you guys can like, no, bullshit, you're an idiot. No, it was that and that. I mean, and then you're just like, we're both stupid, and take a shot. I think you're doing it right. I want to see more. I mean, I don't hate it. Like I think if it's some I want to see where this Mandela effect goes, and maybe something we revisit in some years and see what else is sort of transpired. Is Mandela sort of the pinnacle of that, or no? I guess Sinbad is at this point. The Sinbad seems to be the pinnacle of this whole thing.
I mean, you really kind of changed my mind with the whole thing. I'm more of a believer that he's just always a genie pirate now. So we need to go down that rabbit hole and see what lamp that motherfucker escaped from and try to get him back in.
Yeah, you wear a purple shirt with a vest and a big earring, and like he's like, who is this black man? Is he a genie? Is he magic? Like, yeah, because that's what the 90s made you think this whole time, that the one magic black guy, he's here to either that or drive your freaking car, right? Like drive around your old grandma around or something. So
and change your grandfather's perspective on his racist tendencies.
Yeah, it's like,
I guess that was what I'm
not
supposed to do.
Civil rights this whole time. Oh yeah,
you convinced me. Thank you, genie driver.
Yeah, are you magic? Just I was a man. But so I think maybe it's just a product of the 90s and kind of like,
yeah, no, you're right. Okay, so let's recap. CIA psyop, and that Sinbad is a fucking genie pirate. Good show. What are we thinking we're going to be talking about next week?
Oh man, so this show got pushed off a day or two. I kind of wanted to hit on the perception versus reality thing, and maybe hit on a more modern thing, of a more modern take of what's going on. Pizzagate, which kind of been hinted at some of the other podcasts, and just kind of talk about that.
You're more fringe when it comes to that shit. But
with that, it's just presenting the ideas that are out there, right?
Right. I'm down, dude. Let's talk about it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm Rolando. This is Mike. See you next time.